Hey, what's going on, everybody? For this video on tying Puget Sound sea run cutthroat flies, I'm going to be tying a little baitfish pattern that I've been kind of playing around with the last few days. I haven't fished this one yet, but sometimes you tie a fly and you just know that it's going to catch fish, and that's kind of the case with this one. I've been doing this in a bunch of different sizes and color combinations, and I've kind of settled on this combination of materials and colors, and I really like it. I haven't fished it yet, but I have had it in the water to get a look at it, and it just looks fantastic in the water. Lately on Puget Sound, it seems that small, thin, sparse, short baitfish patterns have been getting it done and outproducing just about everything. So the last few days I've been trying to come up with something that kind of meets that criteria. And this is sort of what I settled on. Now this is nothing that I've invented. It's kind of just takes some principles from a lot of flies that have been around forever. Sort of has a Thunder Creek minnow profile to it. But for me, it's a lot easier to tie than a Thunder Creek minnow. For some reason, I've never been very good at tying those flies. You can do this in different sizes, different materials, different colors. Like I said, this is just kind of what I've settled on. I really like how this looks. The different colors of flash really kind of sparkle and shine at different points, and it gives it a really nice bait fish type look to it. So to get started, I've got a Daiichi 2546 saltwater hook. This is a size 6. And I'm going to be using some uni mono thread. I believe this is 0.004. And to get started, I'm just going to get my thread attached and wrap a little bit of a thread base back. Going to be putting on some flat braid right away, so I don't really need a great thread base to be able to lash materials to. So first step is got a piece of mini flat braid in pearl. I'm going to tie this in just right behind the eye of the hook and then wrap back to about the barb, somewhere in there, kind of whatever looks good to you. Doesn't really matter. And this is just going to kind of be the underbody or belly, I guess. And I'm going to use my rotary here to just wind that up the hook shank and then tie it down. Now I'm going to take and coat this with some UV resin, and this is Solera's Bone Dry. This is really cool stuff. It's very thin, so it's not what I would use for building up bulk, like on bodies, like on a surf candy or something like that. It's not really what I would use for building up bigger heads and things. But it's great for something like this, for coating this flat braid, and this just kind of adds some durability. Fish won't be able to chew that braid up, or won't get damaged by rocks and things. So just put a little coating of that on there and then shoot it with the light. This bone dry cures extremely quickly. It's one really nice thing about it. Next I'm going to be adding some white bucktail. And this particular one is a UV bucktail. You don't have to use UV, that's just kind of what I have sitting on my desk, so I've been using that. So I'll cut off a clump of the bucktail, and then I'm going to kind of pull out any underfur and shorter fibers, and any of the long fibers too that are kind of going crazy, I'll pull those. And I want this to be pretty sparse, so I'm not using a ton of material. And I'm going to make this fly 1.5 to 2 inches. You don't want this one very long. I kind of want a smaller baitfish pattern. So I'm going to just tie this in right behind the eye of the hook. Get it good and secured, and then I'm going to wrap it back about maybe 2 hook lengths or eye lengths. Everything's going to get tied in the same spot. So you just want to leave enough room for putting your eyes and kind of making your head. Next, I'm going to put on some pearl polar flash. Really big fan of polar flash. It's a nice soft flash that moves well. I use the pearl in a lot of different flies. Just think it looks great. Again, I'm not using too much of it. Get that measured out, and then I'm going to cut the ends and tie that in the same spot. Wrap it back to about the same area. Next, I'm going to use some Northern Lights flash from Fly Tyer's Dungeon. This is blue and silver, and this stuff is really great. It's a soft flash, it's crinkly, and it comes in just some amazing colors. I have this in probably 30 different colors, 25 different colors, just about every color they sell. I don't know how many, it's just a guess, but really comes in some cool color combinations. And I like this blue and silver. I just think it looks really, really cool. So I'm going to tie that in, also in the same spot. One thing that I like to do when I'm tying any fly kind of like this, where I'm going to add eyes and kind of make a resin head, is almost every layer of material I'll move it back just slightly from the original tie-in, and that way you don't have a big sharp drop off. It kind of tapers down a little bit. You don't have to do that, it's just my personal preference. Next up, I'm going to use another color of Northern Lights. This one is, what is this? This is olive and hot chartreuse. This is a color that I really, really like. I've been using this in a lot of different flies. It's just a really, really cool, kind of fishy color. Again, I'm not using a ton of this. Get that trimmed off, and I'm going to tie that in also in the same spot. I don't know how well you can see, but by just coming back with each material just slightly back from the eye and from the original tie-in point, kind of makes that nice little even slope down instead of a big abrupt edge. And the last layer that I'm going to put in is some Ice Dub Shimmer Fringe. This is peacock green. It's kind of a bluish greenish color, and I think it looks really cool on this fly. Looks nice on the back. Yeah, I think I'm going to get a little bit more. That was a pretty thin piece. This stuff can be a little bit unruly. Kind of want to clean it up a little bit, pull out any short fibers. I'm going to measure that out where I want it and tie that one in right at the same area. Again, just slightly back. And then I'm going to take some thread wraps and just make sure that my head is kind of semi-even and there's no kind of loose frayed fibers left sticking out anywhere that might interfere with putting on the eyes. And then I'm going to go ahead and whip finish. Next I'm going to attach my eyes, and for eyes I'm going with some 3mm chartreuse from also from Fly Tyer's Dungeon. And one thing I've started doing lately is using a little bit of gel super glue to put the eyes on before I add the UV resin. I've tied these kind of UV resin head flies for years, and I've never used glue. I've always just put the adhesive eyes on and kind of worked them into place and then try to get some resin in between them to lock it down. But sometimes they can slide around, or you get them where you want, and then you put some resin on there, and the resin forces them to move, and it becomes a big giant mess. And So just the last month or two I've started doing it this way and I really like it. This is Gorilla Glue Super Glue Gel, and it just takes a little tiny dab of this stuff and it cures really quickly, and it's not runny like a thin super glue. That's more than I really need. Like I said, you don't need a lot. Just a tiny little dab will do it. You gotta be kind of quick because this stuff dries really quickly. So you want to get that eyeball in there and then make sure it's kind of lined up straight the way you like it. Because it about maybe 15-20 seconds, and that's all it takes, and these things they're not going anywhere after that. So you definitely want to be fairly quick about it. Do the same thing on this side. This bottle likes to the tip will sometimes get glue in it and then it doesn't want to come out real well. Again, just a little dab, get it on there. Kind of lined up where I want it. Then I like to look from the front, make sure it's even. Looks pretty good. So now I'm going to take just a tiny little bit of, this is Solares Thin Hard. Really like this stuff. This is the main UV resin that I use. Solares makes the best resin that I've ever used. I've used a lot of different brands, starting with clear goo and going through the bulk of them, but just oh boy, that was a little too much. Don't do like I did and overdo it with this stuff. I can kind of spread it out though, it shouldn't be too bad. Shoot that with the light. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the underside. Hopefully not using as much. It's better. I like to use a toothpick to kind of work it around a little bit, make sure that it kind of gets in under the eyes. And shoot that with the light. Now I'm going to take some red thread. This is Vivus 10-aught red. I'm going to come right in behind the eyes and add some red. This is just to kind of simulate gills. Get some nice bright red on there, and then whip finish that. This thread spool is just about empty, so it's wanting to kind of pull off the spool on me here. Okay. Now I'm going to finish off the head with the bone dry. I ordinarily use the thin on anything bigger than this, but these small heads and small eyes, I find that the bone dry is a little easier to work with, and I'm just going to take it and kind of work it around, make sure that both eyeballs are totally covered and kind of encapsulated in the resin. That'll help ensure that they don't come off. They get eaten or banged around if they're If there's a little bit of exposed, then the eyeballs will be one of the first things to go. That drives me nuts. Get that kind of how I like it. And then I'll shoot it with the light. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take just a little bit more of this bone dry and I'm going to apply it just to the side, kind of on the bucktail. And it's just to help stiffen that up a little bit and make sure that the fly doesn't foul. With this particular size, it's not really needed, but I do it anyway just to be safe. And that's all there is to it. So you can see, real simple fly, really nice, sparse, thin profile. It's kind of got all the elements that I like in a sea run cutthroat or resident coho fly, and I have every bit of confidence that this is going to produce very well for me the next time I take it out. So give this one a shot, add a few to your box. If it works for you, I'd really like to hear about it. Leave me a comment. And as always, thanks for watching.